Looker is great for data modeling, governance, and visualization. And now the capabilities are expanding to interact with AI agents. When a large language model is connected to Looker, the LLM's ability to provide robust responses improves with well-defined agents. We aren't just connecting these agents to Looker, though. We're designating specific capabilities. Today, we'll leverage the Agent Development Kit, also known as ADK. It's an open-source framework proven at Google scale. We'll build a basic agent to familiarize ourselves with how ADK, MCP, and Looker work together. We're moving from a blank slate to a running local app that's grounded in your enterprise data and ready to use pre-built Looker AI tools. We'll walk through securing your Looker API credentials, setting up your Python environment, and installing the Agent Developer Toolkit, defining a Looker tool using the tools.yaml file, and creating a simple ADK agent to interact with Looker using MCP Toolbox for databases. We'll test that this agent is visible to the LLM using a web tool provided with ADK. By the end of this process, you'll have established a direct connection between your agent and your Looker instance. Let's see how your data can be more actionable and learn how to configure some basic tools to guide your LLM to use Looker. Let's start in Looker by getting credentials to allow the MCP server to act on our behalf. Go to your account to manage your own credentials. If you don't see the option to manage keys, check with your admin. Authentication requires a Looker client ID and client secret. Secure these as environment variables before proceeding. Now, let's prepare for local development. This walkthrough uses a Python virtual environment from the UV package manager. Let's make a directory for our project and change that directory. Now create and activate the virtual environment. Then install Google ADK. We'll install a few other tools that we'll need that are not included in Google ADK. Refer to the video description for additional requirements. To successfully interface Looker with our application, we must first secure the client ID and the client secret credentials. Replace these placeholder values with your own credentials. We'll use the Agent Developer Kit to create an agent by typing ADK create my agent name. I'm going to call my agent Basic Looker Agent. This creates an agent Python file, an environment file, and an initialization file. Since we're using the MCP Toolbox for databases, we can define the tools we want to use from it in a simple YAML file. Create a file named tools.yaml in your project directory. Here's what you should include in this file. Let's break it down. First, we're going to define the source. Under the sources key, we create my Looker source and set the kind to Looker. You'll provide your base URL for Looker, making sure to include the port if your instance requires it, and use the right syntax for your client ID and client secret, because this tells YAML to pull those credentials from your environment variables. Next, we'll designate the tools. Under the tools key, we'll define a tool named get_connections. We set the kind to looker-get-connections, which is the specific functionality built into the toolbox for fetching database metadata. We'll link this tool to our Looker source and provide a clear description. The LLM uses this description to determine the correct tool to call when it needs to see your Looker connections. We're only defining one tool to start with, but there are so many to choose from. Check the link in the description to add more and to try different Looker tools. And check back in the future as more are being added all the time. Now we're going to modify the agent Python file. First, we'll import the packages and tools we're going to use, including some basic agents that come with the developer kit. We'll also import the MCP toolsets and context to use them, as well as the server parameters we'll need to run an MCP server locally. Let's start with the basics, the MCP server. This takes the standard I/O server parameters to connect to Looker. Then I'll define which toolset I want to use. The server is actually dictating what tools we'll use with the toolbox. Now, the most important part, I'll create a root agent that will use the large language model of my choice in order to help translate my prompts into requests. Now that we have an agent defined, let's run it with ADK Web and open the local connection. I'm simply going to ask the agent, what tools do you have available to you? It answers that it only has get_connections. If I quickly modify the tools YAML file to include another Looker-specific tool and restart the app using ADK Web again, I can ask the same question and see that it now has 2 of the tools available. If you follow these steps, you can use this AI tool to get dashboards, looks, and explores. You can turn on dev mode and make a dashboard, and you can even get a health analysis. You've now taken your first steps to creating an agentic system that can use Looker. The Looker MCP tools are linked below. Try them all and configure different tool sets. Thanks for tuning in. Chat soon.